Yep. All right. All right. So it is 6 o'clock, and for all those out in our lobby, want to thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Jada Black. I am the director of the Planning and Zoning for the county and the clerk of the Planning Commission. On behalf of the Planning Commission, we want to thank you for coming out to tonight's meeting, and we appreciate your interest in our work and look forward to tonight's input from you. So when we scheduled this meeting, this was not how we imagined it as a Planning Commission, but with the new variant and the high case numbers within the county, we felt that we needed to use extreme caution and only allow one speaker in the boardroom at a time. Although we're not meeting as a whole, you'll still be able to see and hear what is transpiring in the meeting, on the TV, and in the lobby. You will have an allotted time to address the Planning Commission, and the limit will be based upon the Planning Commission's determination as to your length of time. Please remember to sign in on the sign-up sheet posted in the boardroom entrance before you speak. Our goal tonight for you is to obtain feedback and ideas as we plan for the future of Grayson County citizens. Sharing your opinions and concerns, either good or bad, will help the Planning Commission understand what Grayson County citizens want for future generations, allowing us to begin work creating language the citizens want for renewable energy within the Grayson County zoning ordinance. If you've not had a chance to review the current language, there is a copy of the current language on the back of tonight's agenda. Before we begin tonight's meeting and before we call the first speaker, please allow me to introduce your Planning Commission. If you would, guys, when I call your name and your district, would you just raise your hand? So, Chairman, Mr. Brian Walls for 2022. We are absent, Mr. Gary Ballard of Old Town. Don Dudley for Providence. Robert Noblet for Elk Creek. Dan Boyer, Vice Chair for 2022, Old Town. Lisa Hatch, Wilson District. Charlie Ward, Elk Creek. Bob Felicito, mouth of Wilson District. And Philip Vaughn for Providence. And Mr. Shepley, County Administrator. Glad you could have joined us.
Thank you.
All right, let's have our first speaker.
Bring home the voice up there.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your work.
Is there green light?
Hello and good evening. And if you will, just state your name and address for the Planning Commission, please.
Okay. Testing. My name is Gloria Price.
There you go.
I live at 29 Wagon Wheel Road, Elk Creek. 30 years this year. We appreciate what you have done, what you do in planning for our county. We think it's really, really important. And this topic, renewable energy, is a very important topic, and we really support it. So my husband and I, Todd Price, operate a custom sign shop and design business. We've done work all over the county and surrounding counties. I'm on the electoral board here in Grayson County. So we're very active, and we support good planning. We do believe in renewable energy, and we are taking the time to come and talk today because we think the county has learned a lot over the last few decades through what we've seen with the Christmas tree industry. For instance, we had some visitors to our business recently. It was a honeymoon couple looking for a place to relocate. They could live anywhere because they work remotely. And they were in Asheville, North Carolina, and they wanted to take the scenic route. And of course, when they came through Grayson County, they thought it was absolutely beautiful. But they said, "Do you allow mountaintop mining?" As they looked up on Buck Mountain, because it's been clear cut, it's been removed, all the vegetation, everything just totally removed. And that concerns us very, very much. So we know that you all are paying attention, all the residents are paying attention. And I wanted to just ask you to consider contacting groups in the area that have a lot of knowledge about the wildlife. And so we can work in concert with the species, the diverse species that are here when we bring in new industry so that we can live and work together. My suggestions are talking to the Blue Ridge Discovery Center, the New River Conservancy, the New River Wildlife and Conservation Club, Trout Unlimited, New River Soil and Water Conservation, Preserve Grayson. There's experts at Appalachian State, specifically Dennis Scanlon, and at JMU, Dr. Jonathan Miles of Virginia Wind Center. Please take care of our wonderful, diverse mountains and forests and keep them thriving. And listening to the residents, I just thank you for what you're doing, for all your work in this research and planning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Claire.
I think it's a double A. Hello and good evening. If you will, there's a mic laying there. That's the one you have to use if you
Okay.
don't mind. Just before you get started, please state your name and address for the Planning Commission, please.
Thank you. I am Joyce Rouse from the Elk Creek District. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to offer comments on this important topic and this very timely topic. Grayson County is a unique and unparalleled place of beauty. We live in a time of great peril and great promise. My husband and I have powered our homes for the past 40 years, in some part by solar, wind, and microhydro generation. They work. And the technology is getting better every single day, thanks to American ingenuity and know-how. Recently, we totaled the results of the past 15 years of wind and solar generation from our home here in Elk Creek. And we find that our small combination of units, wind and solar, diverted more than 330,000 pounds of CO2 pollution from being added to the atmosphere. We were astounded. We had never added the number up before. In 2009, we helped sponsor a renewable energy conference down here at the conference center that used to be the bank, and a tour which attracted over 50 local participants. Locals want clean power here. We understand that there is an interest in large-scale wind and solar opportunities in Grayson County. My husband and I have worked and traveled in regions where 400-foot towers of gently turning blades appear as graceful, giant ballet dancers across the landscape. I think I've got another one here. This is an area in Wisconsin where I've worked, where I have clients. And what we have found is the communities who have this take great pride in their forward thinking and what they are contributing both to national security and energy policy. My training has ingrained in me the first law of ecology, which, by the way, ecology is known as the queen of sciences. And that the first law of ecology is that diversity is good, and more often, diversity is critical. For the past 30 years here, there's been a power grab of exploitive extraction industry that has brought more problems than solutions to our unique part of the Commonwealth. Clear-cut ravaging of mountaintops for a single-use, disposable holiday decoration that is now poisoning much of the air, the water, and the soil of our common home. There are many responsible growers in the county, but some growers have shown us over and over that they are not willing to be the kinds of good neighbors that we have always expected in Grayson County. And that good neighbor policy is a fundamental foundation of our community. We don't need more dysfunctional ecology here. Imagine if a reasonable county plan had been in place years ago to share in the opportunity and reasonable regulation of such an industry. Those who are concerned about the landscape with wind towers, I would like you to look across at the hill over the town of Independence and the cell tower, the communication tower there. The APCO high voltage towers that will soon be crossing the New River, the communication towers up on Buck Mountain, up on Lookout Mountain. They all contribute to the quality of our lives, and most of us would not want to give up electricity or our cell phones probably at this point. Ugly, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. Personally, I think that pipelines currently devastating our Blue Ridge Mountains, and this is a nearby coal power plant north of Roanoke that spew tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. Those, I think, are ugly. I don't think of these wind turbines as being ugly. Personally, I think nuclear power plants, massive coal generators, gas pipelines that mar the landscape, leak and erupt and explode are the definition of ugly. We are opposed to any more degrading extractive industries that include known carcinogens and hormone disruptors, which flow down the mountains into our creeks and rivers, and which remain in the landscape for tens of generations. According to a recent presentation and agreements at the COP21 climate meetings in Scotland, deforestation globally, and that includes here, is one of the biggest contributors to climate change, already creating massive disruption in every state. I just got a glance at Sunday's Roanoke Times. We're in the business section. The lead story is essential tree species are facing decline. This is what is happening to our southern hardwood forests at an alarming rate. When we clear cut these, when we timber and forest them without thought and respect for the forest, we lose these species that take decades and centuries to grow. And they're part of the biodiversity that we really need for a healthy environment here. We have an opportunity to be part of the solution here. And if planned and executed carefully, I believe there can be many unintended benefits to education, economy, including our very important ag economy, and the growing tourism industry here. Powerful alternatives, powerful alternatives, instead of abusive power and extractive power and really dirty power that is non-extractive and non-polluting, contributes to our energy security. It is incumbent on our governing bodies to move boldly forward in right fashion, to examine, negotiate, and direct any opportunities for Grayson County to participate in the great turning of our state and nation to a renewable energy future. But to reject this opportunity out of hand is a failure we cannot afford for our county or our country. Grayson County could be a leader in this future. Renewable portfolios of investment could be a source of pride in the community and a lucrative attraction for travelers near and far. Imagine our wind and sun hiking trails, catered picnics, and an educational tour inside one of those giant turbines, which is what they're doing in many of these arrays across the Midwest. Our talented tourism team will develop plans to attract what we can't get enough of. And what is that? It's folks who come here and gush over the scenery, and they could learn about clean energy future, spend their money, and then go home. Let's please consider using our God-given assets to be proactive in our future. I believe, and my life and my career has been built on a belief that renewable energy is a life-affirming choice. We are saying yes to the future in a very clear way. It has to be done carefully. It has to be planned. But you all have the energy and the smarts and the resources to do that. And Richard and I trust that that's what will happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would anybody like to keep any of these that, if you didn't have a chance to see them?
If you want to lay them right there
Okay.
with Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Brian,
So,
you have a certain time limit Okay. It's reasonable.
Oh, yeah.
She didn't say anything about their water system.
3 minutes is standard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ms. Hatch has opted out to not speak. Michael Sedman.
For speaking to this.
You have to hold the one up, and if you don't mind, state your name and address for the planning commission, please.
Sounds good. My name is Michael Svedman. I'm not a resident of Grayson County. I live in Denver, Colorado. I am here on behalf of Rev Renewables, which is a company that has an interest in Grayson County and development and making an investment here. So I'm here today to just talk a little bit about that. Basically, Rev Renewables is an American-owned energy company. It's an affiliate of LS Power, which is what we were originally known as when we started coming around. And we develop, own, and operate power plants all across the country, primarily in the East. We have a large portfolio of wind, solar, and both pump storage and battery storage projects. LS Power, our predecessor or parent company, owns assets from solar through coal, gas, and all of the above. I'm here basically just to say that there is interest in investing in this county. It's a long process. Nothing is certainly guaranteed, but there are a few things that go into developing and bringing a renewable energy project into a county. The three of them I think of off the back are access to the grid, basically, a place to move the power to, wind speeds, or a sunny place to go. Basically, that powers the generators that you're working with, and then available land for the development of that. Here, we are still early stages, but we're talking to landowners in the area that have land and are interested in diversifying their family-owned property, perhaps keeping it in the family with the source of revenue that comes in through this. Renewable energy in general, any sort of power plant or opportunity like this brings in the opportunity for jobs during construction and operations, as well as signifies an investment in the local community. Dollars coming in both directly from payments to landowners and those assets, as well as kind of the tertiary dollars circulating in the economy with the presence of construction workers and operations and maintenance folks. Generally speaking, as far as the ordinance goes, I think the current process, something that I wanted to talk about kind of briefly, it's a complex one, but there's 2 permits that a renewable energy project would have to go through. 2, I guess, zoning approval permits. The first is from the state of Virginia, the Small Energy System Permit by Rule. That's a lengthy, time-consuming process that goes through the board of the state permitting, where we submit applications that are this thick that include all the studies and requirements for those. Something to point out about those is a component of that is working and basically having a local approval of that. So there's not we go to the state and avoid the local process. That includes meeting notifications in the newspaper 2 times in a row, as well as actual public hearings for people to voice inputs to the state regulators. And then there's the other process, which is the Grayson County process about the ordinance that we're talking about today. And something that I think is important to remember on that is that, a project greater than 5 megawatts, which probably doesn't mean much in this room, but any sort of large scale development, large scale being greater than probably 20 acres of solar or greater than 2 or 3 wind turbines, requires you going through, I think you call it your special use permit process here, which allows the company to come in front of the board with their application. And since it's a special use permit, there are requirements that you guys have and judgments that you have to make and questions to ask of me or, a representative of a company to make sure that, they are being a good neighbor to the community, that they are not a fly-by-night shop trying to pull something over fast, but they are investing in the community, doing things the right way, following the rules. So that process exists. And that, again, has, in addition to the state process, public meetings as well. And, notice in the newspaper and things of that nature. And it's not a wind energy project isn't just going to show up tomorrow and start being built. There are processes and things in place to solicit feedback from the locals, go to the boards, get those approvals. And as those, if problems arise from that, that's on us to take care of. And I guess the county to act as an interface between that if necessary. But so I've been developing wind solar storage farms across the US for the last almost 8 years now. And I guess kind of the last thing, or building on the point of this stuff doesn't happen overnight. Here we have signed a few leases and we have put up a tower to measure the wind speed. We need about a year's worth of data for that to even confirm what we think is happening with the wind speeds. And then simultaneous to that, we have to put in a request to the grid, and the grid themselves, the broader operators, have to study that injection of the power to make sure that that makes sense and keeps everything resilient and doesn't create problems with having any sort of power coming in there. And that can take 3 or 4 years to go through that process. In addition to that, there's all the studies that go into making sure on an engineering technical side that these things can be built in these places. That's everything from wildlife studies and consulting directly with the state DEQ and other agencies, as well as from a cultural perspective, making sure that there are resources and that we're aware of things limiting our impacts as much as we can. And let's see, many other things associated with that to get up to the process to where we can even then talk publicly about our plans to do it. So, as a specific of our company's interest, it is real, but it is, I guess, at the point where we are investigating. And once there's more certainty around that is when we start becoming more public and talking about specifics of that. And I just wanted to say, that's how I look at renewables and how they could play into Grayson County. Obviously, I'm not from here, but I'm, a resource for the company and for our landowners to talk to and kind of explain what we're trying to do. And I guess thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. By chance, did you bring any business cards with you or anything?
I did. Should we get into you or?
Well, how many, do you have enough for everyone?
I got a stack, yeah.
Okay. You can just drop it off with Mr. Noblet and we'll pass them around.
Let me get down real quick.
I think there's about 10, maybe 11.
Yeah, that's my contact information. Any questions, feel free to reach out to me, give me a call, anything. I'm here as a resource.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, Brian.
Yes, sir.
I know this is on the side, but I know you guys don't have a formal policy about how long people can speak in these particular types of meetings. We do in the board meeting, and the limit is 3 minutes. Because this is a public hearing, you might want to make that a little longer, but I'd like to task the planning commission with, in the future, coming up with a time limit.
Our documentation specifies 3 minutes.
Oh, right now it does?
Yes.
It does.
Okay, well, we need to
And
make sure we
it can
enforce
be,
that.
it can be, by unanimous consent, adjusted to 5 minutes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, yeah, well, let's try to stay within that. Obviously, we've let some people go.
We've only got 6 signed up,
Okay.
so I didn't feel the need to
Okay.
just press the issue.
We were trying to be lenient tonight.
I got you.
The lack of,
Okay, I'm glad we have a
Speakers.
policy in place.
we do.
We just approved it
We did.
again.
Okay, good.
I was wondering the same thing, Mr. Shapley, so I guess we're thinking alike here.
It is, but we're trying to be patient and
I was thinking
understanding
you had
tonight.
more than 6, so I was like, what's gonna be a while?
Yeah, I was,
No, we didn't have many.
Okay.
In the past, we have told people talk for time listening.
Right.
uh-huh.
Yeah, we
I've been
have in the
told that
past put them on
several
timer, haven't we? So,
We also have the repetitive, clause.
Yeah, if we got several people saying the same thing, then we try to get it consolidated a little bit.
You'll just say-
Well, good evening. If you will, just state your name and address for the Planning Commission, please, before you start.
I'm Beppy Kafka, Elizabeth. Beppy's a nickname. 1785 Sugar Camp Lane. So I have 3 points to make, and I would like to argue against singling out renewable energy. Ridge laws are a different issue. I would love to see all development stopped on the ridges, but we're not here to talk about that. We're talking about sustainable energy. So first, I want to describe living near a wind farm, which I did in Utah. When my first husband and I built our house there, we picked a spot about a mile from the beautiful Spanish Fork Canyon mouth. And so I made my kitchen wall at an angle, and I put an arched window and 2 other windows over my kitchen sink because the view was so beautiful. And I loved it. And imagine my consternation when one day there was a huge construction project over there. At the time, I had a middle school child and an hour-and-a-half commute each way to pay for that house, of course. And so I didn't have any time for community involvement. But it took about 4 years. And by the time they were done, my feelings changed entirely. And I got a thrill every day just seeing them out my kitchen window. Here's some pictures. You know, they're massive, they're magnificent. There's like a smooth airfoil shape that's 135 feet long, and it was graceful, it was slow, there was no noise. I think those things power 6,000 houses. And, you know, canyon winds, they're kind of like the offshore breezes because in the morning when the sun comes up, it pushes air through, and in the evening it goes the other way. And, you know, they're just wind made visible. They're beautiful. And as far as property values, let's just say that if I could have possibly stayed in that marriage and in that house, I'd be a rich woman. The house more than has tripled in value. So, but, you know, it is what it is. My second point I want to talk about is demographics. And I might be a little blunt, but I like to say things as I see them. Do we want to remain the kind of place where the old people die off and the young people leave? If my husband, my second husband, if he had lived, our plan was to have solar power and batteries. And if there had been a law against that, you know, we would have looked for another county. It would have been a total deal breaker for us. So a law that singles out sustainable energy would probably be a deal breaker for all kinds of people, you know, the kind of people that can live where they want, that have the means to. And, you know, they would possibly choose our county because of the nice people and the beautiful scenery. I mean, that's why John and I moved here. So if you single out sustainable energy, you might as well just put a billboard at every entrance to town that says, if you have an education, you're not welcome here. We don't want your taxes. We don't want your investment. We don't want the jobs you might create. That would be the message flat out. So my third point, I want to talk about national defense. And this is not so far out. We are in total denial of how fragile our power grid is. You know, it would be really easy for some bad actor who has some engineering knowledge just to knock out and paralyze large sections. We spend all kinds of money on weapons, but we don't seem to really think much about actual defense. You know, I think about this all the time, just as I have been thinking for decades about a pandemic. And guess what? It was not if, it was when. And it's not if, it's when we have a power crisis on a national scale. I mean, that could happen. I just like to, you know, look at things clearly. And I predict that it's a matter of time before having local distributed power is considered patriotic. I'm actually always a little surprised that in a culture with good old country self-sufficiency like here, local power sources do not get more interest. People don't seem bothered by the unhealthy alliance between utilities and government, which, you know, takes money from our pocket, my pocket and yours, and puts it in theirs. Those two institutions excel at two things: short-term thinking and whitewashing. And in my mind, having local sustainable power is a type of freedom. And I think it'll become more important as time goes on. And if we pass a law specifically against green energy, I would suggest a new motto for the county. We could be the buggy whip county, after the apocryphal story of, you know, the company that made buggy whips and made the finest buggy whips in the world. And where are they now? We, you know, living in the past is an impossibility. You know, we can only live well or poorly in the present, and we can only do our best to have the best life in the future. I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Would anyone like to keep those?
If you'd like to leave them with us, we can look at them.
Thank you. I don't want to take your microphone.
Thank you very
You wanna
much.
see them, Zeke?
I might look on the way out.
Okay.
One or two left.
I'm gonna go get back and get Sarah, see if I can get hers.
All I got was Elizabeth. Elizabeth.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only thing I got.
I did too. Hey, Brian,
Yes, sir.
did you guys introduce me?
We did. He said he was just gonna sit in the corner, not to worry about him.
Okay, so I just want to make sure you got introduced.
Yes, that's why we did.
Okay, cool.
Hello, if you will, state your name and address for the planning commission, please, before you start.
Sure. So my name is Sarah Hash-Trimble. Address is 621 Sugar Shack Road, Independence, Virginia. I'm not as prepared as the people before me tonight, but as I was prepared to speak tonight, I kept praying and asking what I could say so the right decision would be made. My dad told me before he passed away that we would have to fight for a way to be able to pay our land expense. So I wrote a letter and submitted it to the committee. I thought that was enough, but decided speaking to you directly was another chance I had been given to fight for my family, our land, and our county. I've lived in Grayson County my whole life. I've seen changes happen and work out for the best, but I've also seen businesses open and then shortly close. News of big possibilities and then silence of the possibility of them. Tonight, you are considering changes to the ordinance about wind energy because of the possibility of wind turbines coming to our county. In my letter, I mentioned the opposition to the cell tower that's on our property. The tower was challenged then, but is now used in our everyday life as a necessity. Please don't let this opportunity for our county be pushed away. Wind energy is clean, substantial, and domestic energy that can be produced right here. Bringing these wind turbines will be a long-term opportunity for revenue and growth, not just for our landowners, but for the county. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay.
no one else, I do have one that I would like to read to the planning commission. Had an email drop in my inbox about 4 o'clock today from Miss Anne Marie Salea from Elk Creek, Virginia. And she writes today to the planning commission. My initial concerns about the proposed changes to the Grayson County regulations, the installation of wind turbines and solar are as follows. Ridgeline Protection. Currently, I don't believe Grayson County has ridge laws that would prevent the installation of wind turbines on the ridges. There are several concerns about this, not the least of which is aesthetics. Tourism has been a significant income producing industry for Grayson County and has the ability to grow much larger. While touring, people don't generally mind seeing wind turbines as they travel past them, but rarely do tourists intentionally drive toward them to be near them to stay. We should conduct research to see if wind turbines have had an effect on tourism elsewhere before committing to permanent installations. Another concern about placing large numbers of wind turbines in the mountains, especially along the ridges, is the danger they pose to birds and bird migration. Our area is fortunate to have a variety of bird species which are beneficial to farmers, gardeners, and the environment. Eagles are on such protected species and special care should be taken not to adversely affect their habitat. Blinking lights at night can be seen for miles. This can be very disturbing to residents who are accustomed to enjoying their evening outdoors. Herbicide use. Grayson residents are already suffering from the effects of overuse of herbicides by the Christmas tree industry and the power companies. How many more acres will be sprayed to keep shrubs and vines from interfering with these solar panels and windmills? Clear cutting of our diverse trees and plants will surely be needed to install the solar panels and wind turbines and the access roads to serve them. What will be planted in their place? How will this affect nearby forests? The cost of power. How will Grayson residents benefit from the energy produced? Will they be given electric power at discount? I doubt it. Will they be allowed to have their own windmills and solar panels? We've seen this in an unforeseen restriction in other areas. Do we have any protections in place? If we allow these invasive and permanent structures on our mountains, then what about the rights of the other landowners? What provisions does the county have in place to protect the environment, farms, and residents from any of these concerns? There was an executive order signed by Governor Northam in 2019 expanding access to clean energy and growing the clean energy jobs of the future. In it explains the desire to decentralize power. It talks about renewable energy technologies and distributed energy resources such as rooftop solar and battery storage are likely to make up an increasing share of Virginia's energy system. It also talks about equitable approach to cleaner sources of energy to benefit all Virginians and how clean energy advancements offer an opportunity to address and prevent energy inequities facing Virginia's most vulnerable populations. I would argue that the program to fund the installation of individual solar panels, wind and water turbines for citizens of Grayson County would be the best way to meet the goals of this mandate. Residents can continue to pay their normal amount of electricity or maybe somewhat less to repay the program for the loan until their system was paid off. Those funds could then be used to continue the program for other households. By comparison, a plan like this does not distribute the environment and threaten the tourism industry and protects the environment while addressing climate change. It will also provide some jobs to the area residents, and the homeowners will be the beneficiary of the savings. The current laws allow for this type of program. We could be addressing the state legislators for funding instead of considering change in county regulations to allow another outside company make a drastic change that leaves the residents with less of what they love and carrying the burden of the cost. She asked that we contact her if we have any questions.
What was their name again?
Mary Ann Sela, Selaya. I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly. And that is all for public comment.
All righty. Do we have a motion to close the public comment at this time? Have a motion to close the public comment at this time. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Public comment is now closed. I believe that brings us to a conclusion of the town hall meeting. I'll ask staff if they have any other items that we need to discuss or anything at this time.
Not at this time. We do have an additional meeting that does not pertain to wind and solar on Tuesday night. We'll do a follow-up for our Graceland Stone, and we'll do a final determination on that.
Okay. Be Tuesday night at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Shepley, do you have anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to welcome one of our new board members, Zeke Anderson, to the board of. He's the representative from the Elk Creek District, and Brantley Ivy is going to be a new board member from the Mount Wilson District. So we're excited to have the two of you on board. Welcome.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, for letting me sit in.
Absolutely. It's been good to have you tonight. We appreciate you coming. All right, Commission. That brings this meeting to a close. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I second.
Have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you all.
The Planning Commission is now adjourned. Thank you all for coming.